The noon sun beat down hard on the dusty main street of Cedar Ridge in the Arizona Territory. Heat waves rose from the packed dirt and made the crooked buildings look like they were melting in the light. It was the kind of day when most people hid inside, leaving only the desperate or the foolish out in the open. The stagecoach from Tucson rolled to a stop in front of the depot. The horses were tired and sweating. The driver, a weathered man named Jake, spat into the dirt and shouted for everyone to get out. A few passengers stumbled into the heat, but one woman made every head turn the moment she stepped down, not because she was beautiful, though she might have been once. It was because of the bruises. Her traveling dress was torn and stained. One sleeve hung loose at the shoulder. Purple and black marks covered her arms and face. She moved slowly, each step careful, like her ribs hurt too much to breathe. Her name was Sarah McAllister. She held a small carpet bag so tight her knuckles were white. Her hazel eyes darted around, scared of everything and everyone. She had come all the way from Pennsylvania after answering a mail-order bride advertisement. The man who sent for her, William Thornton, had promised a good life. He wrote sweet letters about a fine home and gentle manners, but nothing he wrote was true. Thornton had turned out to be a drunk, a gambler, and a liar. He had lost his store months before she arrived. When he saw her in Tucson, he flew into a rage, shouting that she was not as pretty as her photograph. The beating came fast and brutal. This morning he shoved her onto the stagecoach and told her to get far away before he changed his mind about letting her live. Now she stood in Cedar Ridge with only 12 cents. No home, no family, and nowhere to go. Well now, a voice drawled from the depot porch. Look what the stage dragged in. 3 men stepped forward, eyes shining with a kind of interest that made Sarah's stomach turn. One, a thin man with yellow teeth, looked her up and down as if she were livestock. Another chuckled darkly. "Damaged goods," he said, "but still useful." Quote, Sarah backed away until she hit the hot wood of the coach. The driver had already climbed up, ready to leave. Townsfolk watched, but none stepped forward to help. "Please," Sarah whispered. Her voice was hoarse from days of crying. "I do not want trouble." "Trouble?" the thin man said, stepping close enough that she smelled the whiskey on his breath. "We are offering you work. Town like this, woman alone, there are ways to earn your keep." His meaning was clear. Her knees weakened. She had heard stories of women forced into such lives. She never thought she would face it herself. Then another voice cut through the heat, deep, steady. "The lady said she does not want trouble." The 3 men turned. Sarah looked too and saw him. He stood tall in the dusty street, broad-shouldered and weathered by sun and wind. His age was hard to guess. His clothes were clean but worn. Canvas pants, faded blue shirt, boots old at the heels. A rancher, she guessed, but it was his eyes that held her, gray as winter sky, calm, steady, seeing everything without judgment. "This is not your concern, Coleman," the thin man said. "Maybe," the rancher replied, "but I am making it my concern now. You looking to buy yourself a woman?" Another man jeered. Coleman did not rise to it. His hand rested near his pistol, relaxed but ready. "I am looking to finish my business in town," he said. "This woman is coming with me." He said it like a simple fact, not a threat, not a claim, just truth. The other men shifted. Coleman spoke again, eyes cold now. "Tom, you have a wife and 3 daughters. You want to be the kind of man who stands here bargaining over a beaten woman like she is a side of beef." Quote, the man named Tom flinched. "And you, Pete," Coleman said. "Your mother takes in washing. How would she feel knowing her son is out here acting like a vulture?" Quote, the men stepped back. No one wanted to be shamed in a town this small. They muttered and slunk away toward the saloon. When they were gone, Coleman turned to Sarah. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, carved by years of sun. He studied her injuries quietly, not with pity, not with desire, but with understanding. Like he knew what it meant to be hurt and alone. "You are coming with me," he said again. "Not a command, an offer." Sarah's voice broke as she answered, "I cannot pay you. I have nothing." "I did not ask for anything," he replied, lifting her carpet bag. My ranch is 30 miles out. You will have a bed, food, time to heal, that is all. He walked a few steps, then paused when she did not follow. Ma'am, he said gently, you are safe with me. That is the only promise I will make. Something inside her shifted, something small, something like hope. She took a step, then another. And she followed him down the dusty street, toward the life she never expected. The wagon ride to Joe Coleman's ranch took hours across open land that rolled toward distant mountains. Sarah sat beside him, holding her carpet bag in her lap as if it were a shield. Each bump in the road sent sharp pain through her ribs, but she stayed quiet. She did not know this man. She did not know if she should trust him. But she did know one thing. He had stepped between her and danger without hesitation. That meant something. Joe drove with calm focus. He did not speak unless it was necessary, and when he did, he kept his voice low and steady. The sun thinned into late afternoon when they crested a rise and the ranch came into view. It was not grand, but it looked honest, real. A small adobe house sat low against the land, built to withstand the unforgiving desert winds. A barn stood nearby, doors straight, roof sturdy. Corrals held a few horses. Cattle dotted the open range beyond. Everything was neat, cared for, the work of a man who took pride in what he had. It is not much, Joe said quietly as he guided the wagon downhill, but it is quiet. Quiet. After days of shouting and fear, the word felt like a warm blanket around her shoulders. When the wagon stopped, Joe climbed down and came around to help her. His hands were gentle and respectful. He did not stare at her bruises. He did not rush her. He offered his arm only when she wavered on her feet. Inside, the house was clean and simple. A big fireplace, a kitchen table with 2 chairs, a rocking chair by the window, shelves lined with jars of preserved food and a few worn books. Through one doorway, she saw his room. Through another, a second small bedroom. Joe set her bag down and began heating water without a word. His movements were practiced. Efficient. You should wash up, he said. There is salve in that cabinet, good for bruises. He hesitated, then added, that room there is yours, long as you need it. Quote. Sarah looked around, overwhelmed by how normal the place felt, how safe. Joe, she began, unsure how to ask what she needed to ask. Why are you doing this for me? You do not know me. He paused with his back toward her. His shoulders rose and fell on a slow breath. Once, long ago, he said, I found a horse half dead on the range, beaten, starved, ready to give up. I brought her home because I could not leave her there. Figured she would die, but she did not. She healed. Took a long time, but she healed. He turned to face her, the gray of his eyes steady, sure. Some things deserve a chance to heal, he said, that is all. Sarah did not know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her that way, as if she were worth saving. He placed warm water and clean cloths on the table. I will see to the animals, he said. Take your time. When he left, she stood alone in the quiet house, fighting tears, not because of pain, but because of kindness. True kindness, without strings or expectations. It felt strange, new, almost frightening. She washed slowly, wincing at the bruises. Some were old, some new. Her ribs still screamed when she bent. She found the salve and rubbed it on with careful hands. The scent of herbs filled the room. In the trunk at the foot of the bed, she found dresses and undergarments, women's clothes. Clean, folded, waiting. Clothing meant for someone who never arrived. She chose a simple brown calico dress. It hung loose on her frame, but it was whole, warm, and safe. She felt like she had stepped into a different life. When Joe returned, she was sitting at the table, hands folded. He noticed the dress and nodded once. Suits you, he said. He prepared supper, stew from the day before. Simple food, but after days of fear and hunger, it tasted like a feast. As she ate, tears slid down her cheeks without her permission. Joe did not ask why. He only pushed a handkerchief toward her and let her cry. After they finished, he cleared the bowls and sat across from her. "There are some rules," he said. "Nothing strict, just things to know." She tensed, afraid of what might come. "You stay as long as you need," he said. "You do not owe me anything, not work, not company, not stories. If you want to help around the ranch when you feel better, that is fine. If you want to read books all day, that is fine too. And if you decide to leave, I will take you wherever you want to go." Quote. He held her gaze with quiet seriousness. "But until you decide, this place is your home." Quote. Sarah stared at him, stunned. Home. He stood and poured them each a small cup of whiskey. "Good for the pain," he said. They drank. The fire crackled. The room felt warm, in a way she had not felt warm in years. "Why was the room ready?" she asked softly. "The clothes?" Quote. Joe's jaw tightened. His eyes dropped. "I was supposed to have a wife," he said. "A mail-order bride from St. Louis, 8 years ago. She died of fever before she reached Arizona." Sarah's breath caught. Suddenly the silence in the house made sense. The careful arrangement of furniture. The clothes stored in Cedar. The second bedroom untouched. "I never had the heart to pack up her things," Joe said. "Figured maybe someday, but someday never came." Sarah reached for her cup with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she whispered, "for all of this." Joe stood and stretched, joints popping. "Everyone needs a place to land when they fall," he said simply. "Use the lamp as long as you need tonight." He paused at the doorway. "You are safe here, Sarah. Whatever else you fear, let that go. Nobody comes here without my say-so." Then he left her with the quiet firelight. Sarah sat in the rocking chair, wrapped herself in a blanket, and let the peace settle into her bones. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt her breath finally come easy. Outside, the desert night sang. Inside, safety held her gently. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, she was warm. She was fed. She was alive. And she was not alone. The weeks on the ranch settled into a gentle rhythm, one that felt almost like healing. Each morning, Sarah woke to the sound of Joe moving around the kitchen, trying not to make noise, but never quite succeeding. Coffee waited on the stove. Biscuits wrapped in cloth sat on the table. Sometimes there was a handwritten note telling her where he would be working, written as if she mattered, as if someone cared where she was. During the first week, she did little except rest. Her bruises faded from dark purple to yellow. Her ribs still hurt, but she no longer gasped each time she breathed. She spent long hours in the rocking chair, wrapped in sunlight and peace, letting her body remember how to exist without fear. Joe returned each evening dusty and tired, but never restless or impatient. He washed at the pump outside and prepared supper with steady movements. They ate in silence that felt safe, not awkward. The glow from the fireplace warmed the room as she learned to breathe without flinching. By the second week, she found small things to do, mending a curtain, organizing the shelves, sweeping the already clean floor. Joe noticed everything, but he never tried to stop her. "You do not have to do all that," he said once. "I know," she answered, "but I want to." He nodded. Later that evening, a jar of wildflowers appeared on the table. No explanation, no words. That was Joe's way of speaking. By the third week, she woke early and cooked breakfast. Joe always looked surprised when he opened the door and saw hot food waiting for him, as if he still expected to come home to an empty house someday. "You are spoiling me," he said. "Think of it as rent," she answered softly. He shook his head. "You do not owe me anything." "I know, but I like feeling useful." Understanding flickered in his eyes. He knew what it meant to want purpose. She started tending the small garden behind the house, clearing weeds, turning the dry soil, coaxing life where nothing wanted to grow. Joe watched her sometimes from the corral, the brim of his hat low, his gray eyes steady. One evening they sat on the porch under a sky painted gold. Warm wind drifted across the desert. Sarah looked toward the hills, then asked the question she had been holding. "Joe, what was Margaret like?" He stilled, not in anger, in memory. "Margaret was the woman I was supposed to marry," he said quietly. "We never got the chance. Fever took her before she reached Arizona." Sarah's heart ached for him. She understood now the quiet sadness that lived behind his steady eyes. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "No," he said. "Only regret not fetching her myself. Regret letting her travel alone. But not the trying. Never the trying." Silence rested between them, warm and gentle. After a moment, she asked something deeper. "Why did you stay out here alone all these years?" Joe took time to answer, as he always did when something mattered. "I came west to disappear," he said. "Found out I liked being gone. Land does not judge. It only cares that you work hard and treat everything right." Sarah nodded. She understood. She had not come west to disappear, but she had come west to escape. Months passed. She learned small things about Joe. That he hid peppermint sticks like a child. That he played the harmonica when he thought she could not hear. That he slept like a man used to danger. Joe learned things about her too. That she hummed when she was nervous. That she flinched at sudden sounds. That she always checked windows and doors twice before bed. He never said anything about it. He just adjusted. Quietly. Gently. By late summer, they had to go into town for supplies. Sarah's stomach twisted at the idea of returning to Cedar Ridge, but she would not hide forever. She wore her best dress and bonnet, held her head high, and climbed into the wagon. The general store was dim and cool. Mrs. Garrett watched her with surprise that softened into something kinder. Sarah picked fabric, thread, seeds for the garden. Soon, a woman named Kate Morrison entered with 2 small children. She greeted Joe warmly and teased him for missing Sunday dinner. Kate smiled at Sarah with real warmth. "Welcome to Cedar Ridge," she said. "If you ever need anything, you come to me." Those simple words meant more than Sarah could say, but trouble waited outside. Tom Briggs stood near the saloon with 2 men at his side, the same men from that terrible day. "Looks like Coleman's charity case cleaned up nice," Tom sneered. Sarah's pulse began to race. "Tom," Joe said evenly, "walk away." Tom ignored the warning. He stepped closer with a smirk that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Heard she came west as a mail-order bride," he said loudly. "Bought and sent back as damaged goods. Makes a man wonder what kind of damage she carries." Before Sarah could react, Joe moved. One moment, he stood by the wagon. The next, Tom was slammed against the saloon wall, Joe's forearm across his throat. The other 2 men froze, hands near their guns but not daring to draw. "You will apologize to the lady," Joe said in a low, calm voice that chilled the air. Tom choked, face red. "I did not mean nothing by it." "Apologize," Joe repeated. "Sorry, miss?" Tom gasped. Sarah lifted her chin. "Your apology is accepted." Joe stepped back. Tom stumbled away. His friends dragged him off. Joe returned to the wagon like nothing had happened, but Sarah saw the tension in his shoulders. They rode in silence for a mile before she spoke. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I brought trouble to your door." Joe looked at her, surprised. "That was not trouble," he said. "That was Tom Briggs being himself. Someone needed to remind him of his manners." "You scared them," she said. "Good," Joe answered. "They needed it." "You scared me, too," she admitted gently. Joe held the reins loosely. "Sarah, I would never hurt you, ever." "I know," she said, and she meant it. She trusted him in a way she had never trusted anyone. "People will talk," she said after a moment, "about us." "Let them," Joe said. "Their gossip does not feed my cattle." "Does it bother you?" she asked. "No," he said. "Does it bother you?" She thought about her past, about shame and lies, about how far she had come. "No," she said finally. "It does not." Something in Joe's face softened at her answer. "I am glad," he said quietly. "I want you to stay, as long as you choose." They reached the ranch as the sun dipped low. The sky burned orange, then soft pink. Sarah looked at the house, the barn, the land stretching quiet and wide. Home. That word rose in her like a breath. "Joe," she said as they unloaded supplies. "I do not want to leave." He paused, hands stilling for a moment. "Good," he said softly. "The garden is finally growing. Would be a shame to see all that work go to waste." Sarah smiled, understanding the truth hidden beneath his plain words. They were not just surviving anymore. They were building something. Something steady. Something gentle. Something theirs. And for the first time in her life, Sarah McAllister felt like she belonged somewhere. And she belonged beside him.